Testing. Okay. Good morning or good afternoon. Good. I believe. Okay, I just checked. Okay, yeah. Good morning or good afternoon on Good Friday afternoon or morning to those in Southeast Asia. We are currently tracking what is now Tropical Storm Wipha, also known as Crising or Creasing. Oh no, Crising. Oh no, I forgot it. Anyways, we are looking at that system across Southeast Asia, and we are going to cover the threat impacts that it's going to pose across Southeast Asia, including Taiwan, the Philippines, China, Vietnam, Laos, even Myanmar, over the next 5 days. If you'd like to ask any questions, and I will gladly answer them towards the end of the video. Just real quick, if you want to, you can correct me on how to pronounce creasing. I believe it was creasing, though. Alright, and if you're watching this video after it was a live stream, you can just ask the questions in the comments and I will gladly answer them in the next video. So, looking at the general look at the threat level it poses across Southeast Asia, we can see that there's a broad area of marginal impacts, mainly in the form of rain, for most of southern China and most of Myanmar, and then also parts of Thailand and Laos and northern Vietnam, Hainan Island, and a good chunk of the Philippines, mainly the northwestern Philippines. Again, this is mostly for rainfall, not as much as the wind threat. Now, taking a look at slight impacts, again, this is mostly rainfall for parts of southeastern Taiwan. For parts of China and Hong Kong, these impacts are mostly wind and rain. But then the rain impacts, continues across southern China in towards Vietnam, Laos, and into Myanmar, with another chunk of slight impacts happening in Myanmar, mainly for heavy rainfall. And then we can see as well in the northwestern Philippines, also in that slight impact range. Now taking a look at the moderate impacts. Again, this is now a majority of a rain threat for the southeastern tip of Taiwan. Now, this is the part again where it's a mixture of wind and rain for parts of Hong Kong and southern China. And then there will be another group around Vietnam and Laos. That threat is mainly for rain, and another pocket in southern Myanmar, which is again rain. And taking a look at the western part of the Philippines, the mountainous terrain area, there we have another section of moderate impacts, mainly for rain, and this chunk of major impacts will again be rainfall up to 400 to 500 millimeters, maybe even 600 millimeters of rainfall will be possible over the next 5 days. Now, taking a look at the signal warnings, we have a signal 2 warning here for the northern tip of Luzon, including the Babuan group of islands and the Batanes Islands, with a signal 1 warning for an extended part of Luzon. But again, the wind is not the main threat in this. It will mainly be rainfall. Hello, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining the stream. Now let's take a look at the, real quickly, just a general, broad overview across the world. We, of course, have Tropical Storm Wipha. Here we have a land depression over India that's continuing to move westwards. We now have, I believe, Anka in the southwest Indian Ocean, which is quite rare, happening this early in the season, or off season. And then we have Invest 93L, which is now at a 0% chance of forming. We have something that's at a 20% chance of forming, mainly over the next 3 to 4 days in the Eastern Pacific. We have a 50% chance over the next 7 days off the coast of Taiwan, which could also become a typhoon. We'll continue to cover that over the coming days. And we have an area of 20% chance near the Northern Mariana Islands that could form again in the 7-day range or so. Now let's take a look at the satellite imagery of Tropical Storm Wipha, also known as Crising in the Philippines. We can see that its center is roughly located just northeast of the tip of Luzon, and very broad influence. This is a very monsoonal and sloppy system, And because it's so broad, the impacts will be felt well outside of wherever the center eventually goes. So that's why Taiwan will likely see impacts the entire island of Taiwan. As we can see, there's thunderstorms almost already approaching the island. And then looking at the Philippines, like over half of the Philippines are getting impacts by thunderstorms. We have very strong thunderstorms as well located in the South China Sea being influenced by this broad rotation. But overall, the system has been getting more convectively, mainly thunderstorm activity or organized uh, over the past 24 hours. So that's why we now believe this is a tropical storm. Earlier, it likely wasn't. And looking at the infrared imagery, this shows us more so how intense these thunderstorms are in their cloud tops. We can see that over around the center, wherever it's located, there is sustaining thunderstorms. So again, that's why it's now a tropical storm. And we can see as well that thunderstorms are approaching the southern tip of Taiwan and also now impacting the northern Philippines. And again, just real quick break. If you have any questions, I will gladly answer them towards the end of the stream. Just leave them in the chat, and if you're watching this video later, then you can leave it in the comments. Now, taking a look at the latest scatterometer pass of it, this was around 12 hours ago, 12, 14 hours ago. We could see that there was a decent center here, and then very broad wind field here. This is where we likely found the tropical storm force wind support on that northeastern side. But again, very broad area of around, I think it's around 50-kilometer-an-hour winds. Along the northeastern side, southern side, it's a very broad system. So again, gusty conditions will be felt well outside of the center of the cone. Now, taking a look at the wind shear that the system is expected to face over the next few days, we can see right now it's mostly in a pocket of lower wind shear where the center is located at, which is what is allowing the thunderstorms to sustain over the center without being sheared away. But we do also, or I'll explain this later. But as we can see, the system will be in a generally low shear environment, low to moderate wind shear before moving inland towards Hong Kong, and then it stays generally low wind shear but until it reaches Vietnam, where then it's going to experience hostile conditions, especially when it moves across southeastern Asia. Take a look at the current wind shear the system is facing right now. Again, it's in an area of lower wind shear. But around the system, it faces a higher amount of wind shear, and that's why we're getting thunderstorms blowing well outside of the center there into the northern Philippines. And also, if we take a look at some of these sea surface temperatures, we can see that they are plentiful in terms of the warmth of it. We have a large area of around 30 degrees Celsius waters, which is really helping these thunderstorms sustain themselves. We even have a pocket of up to 32 degrees Celsius off towards the east, where we have the most powerful thunderstorms. But again, very broad area of around 29 to 30 degrees Celsius range. Waters do get slightly cooler before increasing in temperature again by the time they reach Hong Kong, and the temperatures are well warm enough in the Gulf of Tonkin to support even sustainment of intensity. Speaking of which, if we take a look at the next forecast here, we can the unofficial forecast. We have it as a tropical storm over the next 24 hours, before then likely intensifying into a typhoon by the 36 to 48 hour range, likely impacting Hong Kong at that point, before then weakening to a storm, but likely maintaining some of its strength because it's so close to the waters of the Gulf of Tonkin. Again, it could be stronger if it goes on the southern end of the cone, and it could be weaker if it goes on the northern edge of that cone. And then, of course, it will continue weakening, potentially being a tropical depression for quite some time, moving in towards Southeast Asia, and as a remnant low over Myanmar, which will once again impact mainly Myanmar with a lot of heavy rainfall. We'll cover that later. Now, taking a look at the models, this is the European model, showing the system potentially becoming a typhoon over the next 48 hours before striking directly over Hong Kong, and then moving towards the Gulf of Tonkin, and then in towards Southeastern Asia, and then towards Myanmar, Bangladesh, and India. And we can see they also show something broad forming by Taiwan. We'll, of course, cover that over the coming days. Looking at the Canadian model, we have this system also just being weaker, but on the northern edge, and then potentially dissipating near Vietnam. This would be a better case scenario, mainly for heavy rainfall, preventing that. But again, we can see the other two areas of interest, the one by Taiwan and the one by the Northern Mariana Islands, something to watch over the coming week. Taking a look at the German model, well, this one's just coming out. But again, it has the system likely becoming a typhoon by the time it reaches southeast or the South China Sea, and then making landfall near or over Hong Kong before then moving inland into Vietnam in China, and then gradually being just a rainy mess by the time it reaches the Bay of Bengal. And then also it has that other system forming, and then this time it has it moving in towards the South China Sea, also showing something potentially by the Northern Mariana Islands. Just something to watch again. Now taking a look at the ensembles, these are the multiple possibilities the system could take. We have the system impacting. Oh, I'm going to update this. We have the system impacting or going over likely the Babuan group of islands at around I believe that would be the 18th night. So this would be around tonight. It should cross those islands before then moving in towards the South China Sea and potentially impacting Hong Kong by around the 19th or 20th morning. And then moving inland over the next few days towards, of course, Thailand and Myanmar. And also we see some support over here for the system by Taiwan and also an increase in support of the system by the Northern Mariana Islands. Something else to watch as well. And here's a look at the ensemble suite again over here. Again, just generally showing it moving northwestward. There's pretty high confidence that it will move towards the Hong Kong area. And here's a look at the latest American ensembles. Again, having the system generally weaker, but also hitting Hong Kong going in towards the Gulf of Tonkin. But something interesting I've noticed about this is it overdoes the system in the near Taiwan quite a bit, and it broadens its influence. And what it does is it sucks the remnants of Wipha towards the system. So we could see even higher rainfall totals for Hainan Island if this eventually becomes true. And again, here's a look at the ensembles here. Showing the system moving northwest towards Hong Kong and then potentially making a loop back. This would be quite bad news for Hainan Island and surrounding areas. But again, we see that other disturbance by Taiwan. Just something to keep in mind. If this thing becomes stronger, it could have a greater influence on Wipha. Now let's take a look at some of the rainfall totals. This is from the European run, showing a broad area of around 100 to 200 millimeters, including Manila in the Philippines. But it also shows areas of upwards of 400 to 500 to maybe even 600 millimeters of rainfall happening in the southwestern or western part of the Philippines. And then, of course, just offshore, having amounts up to 600 millimeters. Hopefully that stays out to sea. But even over Taiwan, there could be amounts of upwards of 400 millimeters of rain along the east coast due to the topography. And then looking towards southern China, gradual rainfall totals of around 100 to 200, maybe even 300 millimeters of rainfall in isolated spots. But by the time it moves in towards Laos, it is going to slow down significantly and be quite a rainmaker. The European run has it dumping as much as 400 millimeters in some places. And then even on to Myanmar, there could be totals of 300 to 400 millimeters there. So again, it's just a very large area of potentially bad flooding. And if we take a look at the American run, we see that off the northwestern coast of the Philippines, upwards of 500 millimeters again. Taiwan gets a little bit lower amounts of upwards of 300 millimeters. Hong Kong gets lucky in this run, only around 100 to 200 millimeters, with Hainan Island getting around 200 millimeters, parts of Vietnam around 300 millimeters, and parts of Myanmar upwards of 400 to 500 millimeters as well. And taking a look at the German run, and this goes more bullish on rainfall totals, thankfully over the waters of the Gulf of Tonkin, upwards of 500 to 600 millimeters again. But around Hainan Island, a general total of 300 millimeters, and for parts of China as well. Lower totals going into Laos and Thailand. But again, looking at Manila, totals of around 100 to 200 millimeters of rain, and generally areas of upwards of 300 millimeters off the western coast of the Philippines, mainly Luzon. Again, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat and I will answer them at the end of the stream. Now again, taking a look at the track forecast, this is from Pagasa. It has the system as a tropical storm, becoming a severe tropical storm by Saturday evening, and then becoming almost a potential typhoon on Monday morning before then moving towards Hong Kong in China. And then it has the system gradually or quickly slowing down by the time it's almost around Hainan Island. And so this is what we were talking about, where another disturbance could try and develop by Taiwan, and that influence may try and slow the system down and make a U-turn. Just something to keep in mind. And again, we have Signal 2 warnings for the far northern part of Luzon, the Babuan group of islands, and the Batanes Islands, with Signal 1 warnings happening further down south. Manila currently is not in any signal warnings. If we take a look at the preparations there, of course, if you're in the Signal 2 warnings, just continue monitoring the situation, keep your cell phones fully charged, make sure everything's like elevated just in case bad flooding happens, especially if you're in the area of moderate to major impacts. And again, Manila is in that spot of moderate impact, so just be very wary and cautious of flooding. Again, you guys could get lucky and not get a whole lot of rain, but you could also get pretty bad flooding. So now that that's out of the way, let's answer some questions on this system. Crising. Yes, okay. Crising. When will this storm leave the Philippine area of responsibility? If we take a look at the track forecast from Pagasa, it should leave the Philippine area of responsibility at around Saturday evening, and it should be a severe tropical storm at that time. Wolf3 says, well, that goes 93L. Yes, 93L, likely not expected to form now, although it could try and do a loop-de-loop and try a second chance when it goes back into the Gulf Stream and then eventually in towards the northern Gulf. Mackenzie says, hello, I'm from Philippines. Hello, what part of the Philippines are you from, and are you seeing any impacts from this? And Mackenzie says, why JTWC still not called tropical storm? It's probably due to the subjectiveness of the classification. Generally, it's not great convective organization. Like with the thunderstorms, there is still some areas without any thunderstorms, but at this point, I do feel like it's classifiable. We should see an update over the next 3 hours or so, upgrading it to a tropical storm, and we should get a forecast from them. Typhoon lover Silo says, when will this storm make landfall? Well, there could be up to 3 landfalls the system decides to make. Taking a look at its first potential landfall, which will be near the Babuan group of islands. This stuff will likely, I should be probably pulling this up. This will likely be overnight Friday in towards Saturday morning. So over the next 24 hours or so, the system could make landfall. Again, it could thread the needle and go in between those islands. We'll see. But then moving towards the Hong Kong general area, we could see a landfall as early as Sunday evening in towards night, and we could see a landfall, maybe not at all. I mean, if the system goes very far south in this cone, maybe not at all, but I mean, we could also see landfall in China again on around Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. It's just hard to tell at this point. Mainly, it all depends on this disturbance that might form next week. So we'll need to keep a close eye on that. Universe says it's affecting me. Universe, where are you? Typhoon Lover CeeLo says it's going to become a Cat 5 trust. It could. I mean, I'm not going to rule that out, but I mean, it's highly unlikely. Taking a look at the model data on this storm, I should also pull this up. Overall, though, most models keep it at around Typhoon status. I should probably use this set of models. The problem is it is going to face some high amounts of wind shear since it is the South China Sea, so it should keep its intensity somewhat low. Um, it should prevent it from being too strong, and also the fact that it's such a broad system. But yes, Typhoon Lover says Yagi, like it's a comparison. Yagi can be a comparison on the system. It is such a broad system. Yagi did things perfectly right when it entered the South China Sea. It was likely a more favorable environment, though. But again, it is very moist, so there are lots of thunderstorms, so it's a very broad system. Temperatures are quite warm. They will cool down slightly, the sea surface temperatures, but again, it is very favorable. This is like the favorable line. But shear is going to be the main problem with the system. But it is going to get that break when it's near the Gulf of Tonkin, so it could try and redevelop or re-intensify even there. So just something to keep an eye on. And yes, I see everyone saying hello. Hello to you as well. Mackenzie says maybe exit the Philippine area responsibility. GTWC, we be calling it a tropical storm. I don't think so. They should call it before then. By the time it exits the Philippine area responsibility, that's around 36 hours from now, 30 to 36 hours. So I do think that they'll upgrade it to a tropical storm. It's already a high chance within the next 24 hours. Um, oh yes, also I forgot to show the distance from places. Currently, the disturbance is around 400 to 500 kilometers away from Manila, around 150 to 250 kilometers away from the Babuan group of islands, around 300 kilometers away from the Batanes Islands, around 500 kilometers away from Taiwan, around 1,000 kilometers away from Hong Kong, so it is getting closer. And Hainan Islands, it's around 1,300 kilometers. Vietnam, around 1,700 kilometers, and then towards Laos, 2,000 kilometers. Then beyond that, it's just even higher amounts for Thailand and Myanmar. Just something that we could have to watch for potential development eventually in the Bay of Bengal over the next 5 to 7 days, because there is going to still be that remnant circulation that moves into there, similar to what Yagi did. So just something to be wary of. Really hoping that the flooding won't be that bad, but we do need to be aware that devastating flooding can occur in these areas if things go right with the system. So that should mostly be all about what is Tropical Storm Wipha, also known as Crising in the Philippines. Um, it should it should become a typhoon again before impacting potentially around the Hong Kong area. Then the system will move further inland, and then hopefully the system moves quickly and dissipates quickly. The more north the system goes in this track, the quicker it will dissipate. The more south it goes, the longer it has to live. Again, if you have any questions, you can leave them in the chat. Otherwise, I'll end the stream in around 2 minutes. Kenzie says one thing, if possible, Wipha makes North Indian Ocean. Again, it could track into the North Indian Ocean. That is something that we are monitoring as a possibility, but that is beyond the 5-day range, so it's not shown in this cone. Generally it should go towards. It has to go through Myanmar first. If it goes on that southern end of the solution, then yes, it could develop in the Bay of Bengal. So yes, that is a possibility. Axolotl Meteorology Team, stupid question, but why does the Philippines call typhoon something different? Just a reminder, there's no stupid questions in this channel. You can just ask the question if you're curious about something, and I'll gladly answer. Personally on this, I don't know the exact reason. I think it's just I'm not sure exactly. I think it's just more so for public perception. They're Philippine names, so it's just easier for them to understand, and it's easier to track that way. It's just easier for those in the Philippines to track it, I guess. But really everywhere else, we're just used to the international standard of one name. The Philippines just, I think it's more so also just to track storms that are closer to the region with that Philippine area of responsibility. So that way, if there are storms outside of that area of responsibility, they don't name it. And so that's what. So really, they only focus on storms that they should be worried about, if that makes sense. If a storm happens all the way by the Northern Mariana Islands, um, they generally don't need to worry about that unless it's going in towards their area. So that's my way of thinking things. Like in the Atlantic, we have Andrea out to sea, and it's not anything to really worry about, but that takes up a name. Um, and so people are curious, like, oh, what took that name? And so I think that might be the reason why the Philippines does this. It's just a guess. Mackenzie asks, in how long rain in the Philippines? And Binky Bunk, you aren't really late. You can watch the stream again, or like watch the full video. This will be up on YouTube, and so you can watch the full thing again as a general update. So how long will it likely be raining in the Philippines? Let's take a look at that. I like to use this to show generally the rain and thunderstorms. Again, it's a very broad system right here, impacting all the way from Taiwan and the Ryukyu Islands all the way down towards the southern Philippines. So this is roughly right now. If we go towards, let's see, if we go roughly 12 hours from now, let's say towards Friday night for you all, we can see it's impacting the northern Philippines and again the central Philippines as well. If we go towards Saturday morning, again it's a broad system, and we're getting heavy rain for Taiwan and a large chunk of the Philippines, including Manila. Going towards Saturday night, again it's still occurring across the Philippines, with the system now impacting Hong Kong and parts of China. Towards let's see, towards Sunday morning, again impacting, but mainly just the northern Philippines and western Philippines. This is where the main flood threat comes into play. And again, that happens over the next 24 hours afterwards. Even more rounds of heavy rain, and also this disturbance will be the cause of some of that increase in moisture across the Philippines. So yes, just something to be worried about, and again, heavy amounts of rainfall over here, around 20 millimeters an hour in some areas near Laos, just being shown on this model alone. Some areas, yeah, mainly 20 millimeters an hour for parts of Myanmar and Laos, wherever the disturbance eventually decides to go. But yes, like this may continue on for the next 5 days or so across the Philippines. We'll continue to keep you updated though. David Lee YT says, does broader systems like this storm more resistant to shear? Overall, I'd say so. I mean, this is a very broad system, so I mean, all the moisture is in this general area. The problem, I mean, broader systems are generally caused by the shear just making it so broad. But overall, though, these broader systems take longer to consolidate, so we may not actually get a typhoon by the time it reaches Hong Kong. It just still is a possibility if it gets going quick enough. But I hope that answers your question. Jekka TV says hello, hello. Mackenzie says, by the way, Pegasa have updated today. I think that's what I showed here. Maybe they got another update. I'll refresh it. Oh, yes, they have. Thank you for that. Wow, okay. So yeah, we can see that there's area of at least strong winds happening for a good portion of Luzon. And it's impacting now the Babuan group of islands and nearly the Batanes Islands. The system is expected to move north, though, and move through the Babuan group of islands, then become a severe tropical storm by the time it exits the Philippine area responsibility. Could nearly become a typhoon by the time it approaches Taiwan, or approaches Hong Kong, excuse me. And then still will remain a severe tropical storm by the time it reaches the Gulf of Tonkin, potentially. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm confused why there isn't another point in here, because the system could go on even longer. It's just not shown there. Curious if any of the signal warnings have updated. So the signal 2 warning is now in effect for the full province of Isabela. And yes, again, still northern Luzon, and signal 1 warnings also for northern Luzon. Okay, I have a question from Axolotl Meteorology Team. What are your thoughts on 93L possibly going back around to the Gulf and becoming a tropical storm? I saw a solution by the American Run that showed the system potentially. Here, I'll find it. I don't know if they're still showing it. Yeah, I mean, the American Run shows it here, but earlier it showed the system potentially even moving towards the Carolinas. Yeah, this was the run. So it is something to watch out for. Mainly, it should generally move towards Florida and then eventually back and towards the Gulf. It's just going to be another round. It's annoying. It's just this little ridge right here that's going to creep in. You see this little guy right here causes the winds to move. I believe that is clockwise. And as the system eventually moves towards Dixie Alley up here, the high pressure is just going to force it right back out over the water. I don't know if that was actually a similar solution of what happened previously. Yeah, it looks like it is. The ridge forced that area, the trough of low pressure, to move in towards the Gulf Stream, then eventually move in towards the Gulf, and then this new ridge is going to force it back out and do the exact same thing. So we're going to have to go through round 2 again of the system. Let's see, Bingy Bong says, how do you see the signal warnings on map? I can't find it, only see the text. I don't remember where I found it, actually. I'm going to see if I... It's this right here. Okay, if you're on the website for Pagasa, Tropical Storm Crising, we scroll down here. I'll refresh the page, so it's the latest update. Sorry, just mosquito. If we scroll down here to the signal warnings, see wind signal, and it lists all the warnings. If you click on the areas with TCWS, Tropical Cyclone Winds scale, we can see the map here. So that's the way to get to it. I had to figure that as well. I wish that they had it displayed right next to it like the National Hurricane Center would do, but this is how it is. Anyways, again, Signal 2 warnings are in effect for Luzon, including the Batanes Islands, the Cagayan, including the Babuan group of islands, Isabela, Apayao, Kalinga, the northern and central portions of Abra, San Juan, and just a whole lot of other areas. The eastern portion of Mountain Province, the eastern portion of Ufuego, Locos Norte, and the northern portions of Locos Sur. And then, of course, Signal 1 warnings as well, going even more south of that. You are welcome. Now, if you have any other questions, you can leave them in the chat and I will gladly answer them. Mackenzie says, don't think so, and most likely dead 93L, so don't get named Dexter. Labor. It is, I mean, I doubt it's going to be Invest 93L. It will be likely Invest 94L if they do decide to give it that designation, just because this one's mostly dissipating, and it's mainly a new trough and new low pressure area that's going to develop. Maybe they keep it as 93L. I doubt it. I doubt they're going to keep tracking it. The only reason they would track it is if they started adding an area of interest box over in this region. Speaking of which, I'd like to take a look at, I'm just going to pull this up off stream just to make sure. I'm going to take a look at the probabilities of a tropical depression in certain regions. First, taking a look at, I'm going to go to, meant to do this. I want to see just the probabilities of a tropical depression forming there. As we can see, the probabilities of the European ensembles are around 15%. But that is over the next 216 hours. So over the next week or so, again, there is around a 10 to 15% chance maybe the National Hurricane Center decides to mark it. But by the time they mark it, it will likely already be. They likely would have decided to stop tracking it. Otherwise, it would remain Invest 93L that whole time, most likely. David Lee YT asked a pretty good question. Does this second disturbance after Crising present a threat? It seems like this disturbance is going to pop up from nowhere. And yes, it pretty much will. If we take a look at the European runner, or how about let's take a look at the ensembles? This will be a better depiction of what most likely will happen. This disturbance comes mostly out of nowhere on the 20th night, or 20th evening in towards night, and then it starts developing, and this is by the 23rd morning. Again, a broad area of multiple ensembles showing something potentially developing by Taiwan. Curious if this can actually show that. Yep, this European ensembles as well shows around an 80% chance of something developing by Taiwan, and then generally moving towards Taiwan is the general solution, at least of this and at least of the European ensembles. It is mainly this section right here. Mainly developing just offshore the Ryukyu Islands, the Batanes Islands, and Taiwan, and then generally moving northwestwards towards Taiwan. So I'm not quite sure yet if it will be a Philippine threat. It will increase the amount of rainfall. It's just generally such a broad area of low pressure in this region. Can't help but wonder if there's going to be a lot of rain out of this. Taking a look at the latest German run, though. Okay, the German run doesn't develop it as much. The previous German run did, though, and it had it going in towards the South China Sea, potentially towards Hong Kong again, which would be a concern. Mackenzie asks, in Wipha, how high wind shear? Well, again, this is a very broad system, so the wind shear is happening over a very large area. Over where the center is, it's only around 5 to 10 knots due to that upper level anticyclone, just providing it a lot of outflow. But around the system, upwards of 25 to 40 knots of wind shear, very unfavorable in this general area, but really what matters is the center, and the center is in a low shear environment, so that's why we're getting all these thunderstorms over the center. Bingy Bonk asks, what is the website that shows the chance of the tropical depression? These unfortunately cost money. I want to give a shout out to the MWX, the EMWX, for them lending this their account to me to show this kind of stuff. This is called weathermodels.com, and there is another website called, I don't remember what it is. I think it might be Weatherbell. Axolotl Meteorology Team says, how is it already named when it is only an invest? It has been named the okay, so the people who declare this stuff an invest, they are the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. That is from Hawaii. That manages these invest. What ultimately decides if it gets named is Japan, the Japan Meteorological Agency. They are the ones who decide the naming. So sometimes you'll see things like, oh, Tropical Storm 8W, like Tropical Storm 01S, and that's because other agencies are naming the storms, not the Joint Typhoon Warning Center. Zoom Earth here uses, or ATCWF, it's a thing that tracks systems and invest. That's why it still says 96W. It has been named, though, by the Japan Meteorological Agency. Mackenzie asks, by the way, next in Weather or Western Pacific, name is Francisco, and Pagasa name is Dante. I don't know how to pronounce that name, so. TFK's tropical storm Wipha's have peak strength. It is expected to be Category 1 with winds of 75 miles an hour. It could be a low end Cat 1. I believe it could even be a mid range Cat 1 by the time it reaches Hong Kong. Generally, in this forecast, has it around 65 or at around this point, maybe 70 knots. And then that would be around 80 miles an hour. And then at this point, roughly around 65 knots because it's going to be weakening at that point, moving inland. But again, the peak isn't really the most important thing. The main areas that will be worrying about the wind threat is parts of southern China, parts of Hong Kong, and parts of Vietnam, mainly experiencing the wind threat of this. The rainfall threat will be impacting a large area. And I did want to ask you all, what are your thoughts on the new thumbnail design? I don't know if you all saw that new thumbnail. I will show it to you all if you haven't. Here's a look at the new thumbnail. I decided to do something similar to other YouTubers in America, just mainly highlighting the areas that could get slight impacts or worse. Just showing some areas in Myanmar, the Philippines, Taiwan, and then China. Trying not to make it too clickbaity, I just want to make sure people are up to date. Like, if you're in these areas, you need to pay attention to things. So, I'd like some feedback on that as well, if you could please. I just want to know, is this too bad? Is it good? Um, Anything like that would help. Binky Bonk asks, who's in charge of naming Tropical Storm ONS? It is Mateo France, I believe, where it's at right now. Mackenzie asks, Eastern Pacific so inactive after a hot start. Yeah, we could have even had the G and H name storm, but both of those disturbances kind of fizzled out. We do have an area of 20% chance, though, unofficially, that could develop over the next 3 to 4 days, so it's just something to watch. Uh, Thank you, Bingy Bonk, and Mackenzie and David, for your kind words about the thumbnail. Ultimately, what I decided to use is it takes a lot. I use a I use a software called Visual Studio. It takes a good amount of coding to make those graphics. Um, it's I don't know how to describe it exactly. I spent weeks trying to code that stuff, but ultimately, then I use something called Figma to make it look better. I decided to talk about this though. This is pretty much the same thing as the cone, but it's a bit difficult editing out the points and then editing out what else did I change? That's really it. Editing out the letters and editing out the circles, and then adding a drop shadow to this cone. Uh, that was somewhat difficult, but ultimately worth it. Oh, Axolotl says, does the North Indian Ocean even have a naming list? Every time I've seen a North Indian Ocean storm, it's just labeled a number or just North Indian Ocean. They do have a naming list. It's just that the Indian Meteorological Agency doesn't really, or department, doesn't really name a whole lot of systems, especially those that are likely land depressions. They really only name those storms that actually become solid tropical storms. They have a different way of naming things. But yes, they do have their own naming list. Bingy Bonk asks, why was there a tropical storm over India yesterday? No forecasters seemed to notice it. I was quite surprised no one noticed it. I mainly noticed it because I was tracking the disturbance before it. We had this other land depression moving forward. This is due to something called the brown ocean effect. India acts almost like an ocean. And then eventually this other system formed. It likely was a tropical storm. It was a bit more organized than the last system. Uh, but yeah, these kind of systems can form, and there's usually 1 to 2 per year. It's not too surprising. Just broad cluster of thunderstorms moves from Myanmar and Bangladesh over towards India. That's why even systems like Wipha could easily become something when they reach the Bay of Bengal. Yeah, the North Indian Ocean, Mackenzie says North Indian Ocean so very inactive 2025. Yes, I mean, I'm glad it's been inactive. I mean, we don't want any major storms there. These are some of the deadliest storms. So them getting a break is always nice. All right, well, that is going to be all for today. And again, if you're watching this video after it went live, you can always ask the questions in the comments and I will gladly answer them in the next video. I'm just going to real quickly check and see if there were any other comments in the last video. I don't think there were. I'm just going to double check since I want to make sure I do answer all questions. Last time I checked though, there wasn't any questions. So just want to make sure because I want to make sure I cover everything about the system as it is quite a big concern. Nope, it was just saying hello. Well, again, thank you all so much for watching. Again, stay safe. Keep monitoring from your local officials, and I will continue to provide updates as necessary, probably over the next 2 to 3 days. We are currently in code pink for this system, so that's why we're doing a lot of coverage on it. So again, just going to leave you on this graphic here. Again, a lot of areas could experience slight to even major impacts, mainly in the form of rain, possibly in the form of wind in Hong Kong. But that's all I have for you today. Thank you all so much for watching, and just stay safe. I'll see you in the next update.